Hello and welcome back to another Outlaw walkthrough. Today we're going to be discussing the recently released feature, the calculated fields. So let's go ahead and jump into it. A couple things to note here is that you are able to reference not only outlaw variables, which are these purple ones, but you can also reference FVDA variables, which are tied to your file line. And within the calculated variable, you can also reference other calculated variables. So similar to FileVine, how you would be building out calculated fields, you can do the same now in Outlaw. So let's go ahead and jump into how to actually build this. I already have a couple of examples already pulled in here down at the bottom, but in case you are new and you haven't really played around with Outlaw or FVDA too much, we can kind of take it from the beginning together. So here you can see these purple ones are what we call outlaw variables. Outlaw variables are simple to add in. All you would need to do is hit the bracket on your keyboard. You can see this is going to give you a prompt of different variables that you can enter. Now, if I wanted to enter just a regular variable that I'm going to use in my equation, I can either click on variable here, or I can do a hashtag or pound symbol, and then I can name this whatever I want. Maybe I'm going to call this one just test. I don't even have to call it an amount or an expense. It doesn't matter what you name the outlaw variables, as long as it makes sense to you. Once I have my name, I'm just going to go ahead and hit an in bracket. There was already a test there, so let me do test 1 and then hit bracket. From here, to make the calculated fields work, you would either need to set this to a number variable, a currency variable, or a percentage variable in order to pull that in and have anything calculate within this calculated variable. So you do have to make sure you set it to one of those. Let's just go ahead and set it to a number. Obviously for this one, this would be something you would fill in when you're generating your document, and then this would be pulled into your calculation, making a formula, and then based on whatever formula you give this calculated variable, it's going to spit out that output. So that is how you add in one of your outlaw variables. And you can see I already have a couple of them here. I've already set up one for an amount and an expense so that I could reference them in this calculated field. So this one here, denoted with the syntax or the percentage symbol, is the actual calculated field that is going to be basically taking these two other fields in this instance and combining them and giving us our output. So you can see here, I've already set this one up, but every time you make a calculated variable, you do have to add a formula. I think that's pretty straightforward. That's similar to what you would be doing in FileVine if you were using calculated fields there. But if you are new and not using FileVine, you would need to make sure you set up the formula. So we can see here that all I did was I actually came in here, I hit our bracket like we'd be adding any normal variable. I went ahead and just selected variable here, and then I can just start typing. And you can see because I'm already referencing this on my template here, I can go ahead and add that in, and it's as simple as that. You can see I also have a plus sign in here. Right now, it's also, you can also support, a minus. You can do a star for multiplication. You can do this backslash for division. And you can also, if you wanted to use anything for, maybe if you were going to do something related to PIMDOS, you can use, and I can't see that too well, you can use parentheses to kind of group items together to denote there's a certain way you need to be calculating this. So those are currently the options that are supported right now. You can see I'm just doing a pretty basic one. We're going to add this amount to this expense field. So let's go ahead and calculate it and see what it turns out to be. But once you put in your formula like this, you don't need to put, an equal sign or anything like that. You just are good to go. And then you would just hit update. Now, typically, if you were going to be, filling this in and you were just a regular Outlaw client, you would then go to the contract repository and you would generate this document. But we're just going to go ahead and do preview as here, and we're going to preview as FlowWeb so we can see that live data and how it actually calculates. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up, scroll to the bottom. You can see I had filled in previously that that amount field is going to be 100 and that expense field is $50. So then this comes out to 150. And you can also tell here that this is a calculated variable because if you hover over it, it does say it's calculated and it's read only, obviously, because this is relying back to the formula that you gave this variable previously. So you're not able to change it. But if you need to make any calculations or any updates to your formula, you would just come back here on the template and make those. Let's talk about the FVDA variables and how you can pull those in as well. You can see here, I have already opted to pull them in. I kind of just have this written out so it's a little bit easier to see as a formula, but you don't have to pull in, these variables to your contract or, document in this case. The only reason we needed them here as the outlaw variables is because that is data that's not stored elsewhere and that does need to be filled out, or else, if neither one of these are filled in, you're going to get just a zero here in this expense calculation. But for the FileVine ones, there's live data in FileVine, so you don't necessarily have to have this on your template. You can just reference it in the equation. So let's see here, we're actually pulling in our meds original balance, and then we're taking off the write-offs and adjustments. So basically that's going to give us our, meds calculation, or total balance due or something like that. So to add in a calculated variable here, we would push that bracket here. You can either come down here and select calculated variable, or if you want to, you can just add in your percentage field there. Now we're going to give our calculated field a name. I think I'm just going to call it, like meds balance. And I have my cap box on right now, which is why it is all uppercase, but you don't have to. You can also just backslash and we can do med balance like that. Once you're done and ready to add in a variable, you would want to hit the in bracket. And then now you can see this physically makes a variable like this other one. Once we make the variable, we would just need to click back into this and actually set up the formula. So I'm going to use the same formula that we're kind of showing here. I'm going to hit my bracket in here, and I'm just going to search for that original balance. Then I want to subtract the write-offs. So I'm also going to look up the write-offs and adjustments. It's also in my meds. And then I'm going to hit update. You can see previously that this was glowing red. That means that you haven't finished setting up the variable or formula, and then it's not going to calculate anything. But once it's this black color, you should be able to calculate your balance there. So let's go ahead and preview this as, again, typically if you were an FVDA client, you would go into your FileVine, you would generate the document that you have this calculated balance on, and then it's going to pull in from your FileVine. So I just want to show you back here that in my FileVine, I do have this original balance and this write-offs filled out. So I do have, my fields and my data stored here that's going to pull in and then calculate based on what are in these two fields. So let's go ahead and preview as. We'll scroll to the bottom here. So the reason it's not popping up automatically is because this is actually in a collection section, and I have a few different items in my collection section, so you will need to choose which one you want to use. So we'll come in here, we'll load our collection section. We're going to use this Madame Pomfrey one that we looked at before. I hit update. You can see as soon as I hit update, the original balance due is $10,000, subtracting the write-offs, which were $200, and we're getting our calculated currency field here. So that is a great way of how you can use the different calculated fields. And like I said before, you are able to add in, basically pull in these calculated fields that you already created and reference them in a new calculated field. So let's set up another calculated field here. We can literally name it whatever we want. Let's just call it money. And then we're going to click back into it, and let's reference this expense calculation that we had before. So if we type this in and we start typing in expense, you can see that this pops up. And maybe we want to add that, or maybe let's just multiply it times our med balance if we wanted to reference that as well. So we can either use both of our calculated fields that we pulled in previously, or if we wanted to mix it up and say maybe I want to use this expense calculation and then multiply it times maybe one of my file bind variables that I was using. Original balance, I could do that. So, we have some options there, and then you can also come in here, and if you wanted to, we could, let's also just add in that med balance. Let's see what we come up with. So again, you would just need to construct your formula here, and if it gets a little bit long and hard to read, you can also pop it out this way to just kind of keep everything on one line. We'd want to hit update again. Let's go ahead and jump into our flow web here. And you can see right now it's showing up as 0 just because we need to select those collection section items that we have. So let's hit update. You can see now this is obviously pulling in a very large number based on all of our calculations and our formula there, but that is how you can reference your already calculated variables here and here like we did before and pull them into one formula. So that is it for our calculated fields, and I hope this was helpful.